51% of homes have mold. Some people react to it more than others. There's no doubt about that, but it still does affect the immune system, and eventually it affects kidney function. Conventional medicine will never help you get well. They will medicate the problem. But if you go off the medication, you still have the problem. If there's 3 nutritional supplements that every human would do well with, and again, we're talking about 99.9% of people, there's always 0.1%, right? That's contraindicated. It's going to be a good activated multivitamin, which includes basically a whole methylated B vitamin. Now, the second one would be...
Hey everyone, Derrick Hines here. Welcome to the podcast where I'll share with you the patterns, insights, research, and technologies that we use in my own pain and performance practice to help people improve their health, speed their healing, and increase their longevity. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. All right. The great Dr. Stephen Cabral. Welcome to the Pain and Performance Podcast, man.
Great to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
This is a little bit of a weird place to start, but I'm on day 2 of my quarterly fasting mimicking 5-day.
Okay.
And I've heard you talk so much about the subtractive properties of healing. And I thought that would be, it's hard for me personally to actually like stay with that consistently on myself. And this is one of the ones that I do feel like I do well enough that kind of falls into that. But let's kind of pull that out because I think that might be the hardest one. It's always easy for us to take a new thing and add it into our life. But let's kind of dissect that a little bit.
So this was new to me. And I, like most people, so I essentially, my health journey started around 1995, 1996. I was a senior in high school, got extremely sick. It took 2 years to even get a diagnosis, ended up having multiple diagnoses, autoimmune issues, Addison's disease, type 2 diabetes, mast cell activation syndrome, allergies, acid reflux, you name it, right? So like I had it all. My immune system has literally shut down. So for me, going to practitioners in the 90s, it was hard to find like a lot of natural practitioners. There was no internet. You'd bump into people, but it was always adding more. And so like it made sense. Like if I was low in B12, okay, we'll add B12. But I've always say that no one's ever got better from just taking vitamin B12, right? It's like you don't all of a sudden rebound all of your energy and, your brain fog or whatever it might be. It can be part of the story, but it's not the whole story. So flash forward 10 years later, it took me 8 more years, so 10 years total to find my mentor, Dr. Pete. Finally, I was able to put everything together and I healed. No more issues, no more health issues, no more autoimmune, no more Addison's disease, primary Addison's, no more type 2 diabetes. And so I go back. I had actually become a strength and conditioning specialist, personal trainer, nutritionist during that time. Loved it. It was so much fun. And literally, it was like my calling. I went back to school, got my doctorate degree as a doctor of naturopathy. And then I'm like, okay, add more, like all these great things. And then I go on my internships. And I specifically wanted to do internships because I've always learned from doing. Like I love to read. So reading for me is something I enjoy. So that's not an issue. But learning from other practitioners always was so helpful. So my first internship, I'm studying Ayurvedic medicine in Sri Lanka. And it was Panchakama. And that is radically different from what we do in the United States. It's literally like fasting, coffee enemas, Abhyanga massage, manual of drainage, like all these things that weren't really like a manual Vata taught, right? I'm sure you've studied all those things later in the day, but you see them, but you don't really know what it's all about. Well, this totally blew my mind because it's like wringing out a sponge. That's the best analogy I've ever been given. If you add more water to a sponge that is soaked, you just get a sponge that is more soaked, holding just more water. If you give yourself 21 days, 12 weeks, whatever it is, to really wring out that sponge, now whatever you add back actually can take hold. That changed my philosophy forever. And that's what ultimately led to my first book, The Rain Barrel Effect, which is you need to empty your rain barrel to really get the results you want. Because it's too easy to just add the latest supplement, the latest superfood. Hard, but really worth it to do the subtractive properties.
Yeah. Until I started studying, probably like fasting on some level was the first thing of like, what do we need to take away that gets our body deeper into healing? And like, we see a lot of chronic pain issues. We see, things that are, chronic headaches. We see, tendinopathies and neuropathies that just haven't healed through kind of the typical kind of, here, take the medicine or do the, regular little home programs and stuff. And so on some level, it was always like, all right, let's add this. And then when you started seeing people who would go through, let's say like a fasting protocol or like go through some dietary testing and pull some things out, and their headaches just kind of almost completely go away or come down like 80-90%. That you start to realize, especially in America. I'm with you. Most of my like postdoc continuing ed stuff was all abroad, and it just makes your brain like scramble when you go to some of these other areas. I spent a bunch of time in Thailand, and I'm like quite similar. You see patients with a doctor there all day, and they're like, I can't tell them to take that. They can't afford it. They can't get it. Like that's not going to do us any good. So when it comes to pain and healing stuff, is there things that you see in the subtractive kind of realm that is like kind of keep reoccurring for you when y'all are working with people?
Well, especially for pain, because pain can come from, I mean, a myriad of, well, you can look, hundreds of things can cause pain in the body. And so we can look at it, is it direct pain? Is it referred pain? A lot of the pain we're talking about chronic wise, and you might see this in your practice too, is like neuralgic pain or with the nerves. It's basically like the body's inflamed, and that's causing non-specific pain all over the body at times. And what we'll see is, well, it can be a combination of things, but I'll give you an example. So the standard American diet, people are like, I'm eating healthy, but I'm eating these snack packs that are low calorie, I'm eating this, and they're loaded with something called arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid can then break down further into leukotrienes, and it can break down into thromboxanes and other inflammatory cytokines. So when you look at these eicosanoids, or you look at these inflammatory-based molecules, and you say, and you run someone's like inflammation test. So I talk a lot about at-home lab testing. Okay, they might be an 18-to-1 from omega-6s to omega-3s. And you want to be ideally a 3-to-1. So what we need to do is cut down on the arachidonic acid intake and then increase the omega-3s. And within 3 weeks, the pain can be gone if that's what the pinpoint was. And sometimes it is. Now, is it easy that it's a single thing? No, not always. It's not usually one thing. It's also like poor biomechanical alignment, right? Like postural alignment. If we stare at computer screens all day, I see myself doing it all the time. I've got the cervical flexion where my chin is like 3 inches in front of my shoulders, right? And so I'm holding this weight all day, and I'm like, why does my neck hurt, right? Like, and so we need to work with inside the body that we can look at as like the nervous system, which a lot of that has to do with inflammation as well and stress where we hold it. But the other part is literally, as we get older, we get crumpled forward, and we need to do more things that help with the actual structure and physiology of the body. I have 2 daughters. I try to teach my oldest daughter this over and over. She stands and she starts to lock out her knees. Her arches begin to collapse. And I'm like, I know it's no big deal at 12 years old. It will be a huge deal 20 years from now. Please just start to. She's like, but if I do that, it's hard. Yeah, I'm like, yes. I'm like, hard now, but easy life later, right?
Right.
Easy
right.
now, hard life later. And so anyway, these types of things we're trying to teach our clients because they were never told that when they were 12 years old.
Well, that's like the systemic integration, right? It's like, could you get away with a little bit of like poor positioning or poor biomechanics, or even like, slight like, tendon impingements or something like that, if the rest of your systems are working like really well? Probably. But if you start to lose, your immune system is a little bit, overrun, and it's not functioning as well, and we've got a little extra inflammation, it's like, now maybe that's not the cause of your neck pain or your shoulder pain, but it has kind of tipped you over the point where your body isn't able to handle that as well as it might have been. Like, we get the question all the time, like, hey, what are you saying that my nutrition issues is causing my neck pain or my shoulder pain? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
If you look at my x-rays of my left rotator cuff or labrum, it is, you can't perfectly assess it, somewhere between 40 and 60% torn. And for 8 months, I was in pain, like real pain. I did it actually, years of weightlifting, playing sports, martial arts, being thrown on the ground quite a bit, but also because I did judo and all sorts of different great martial arts, which I love, but archery. So I'm right eye dominant. So I pull a bow on my left arm, stupidly pulling too much weight, like shouldn't have done that. But regardless, I have great colleagues, right? So I had to find the right one through non-surgical, strength training alone, specific movements, no pain. Now, my diet is dialed in, so it's a anti-inflammatory diet. I actually work on all the small muscles of the rotator cuff themselves, but heavy movements. Like, I have to be able to grip heavy weight, do farmer's walks, keep my shoulders packed, like all these things. now allow me to not have surgery. Now I'm saying like someday surgery might be required, but if I can push that off, I'm in my late 40s now. Well, I need to keep these joints for the rest of my life, hopefully another 50 plus years. So I look at it as, if my inflammation's high, the pain will come back. If I start to slouch forward for days at a time, or I don't exercise for a week or two, pain will come back. So all of these things, they take a little bit of work, but they make life easier. It's weird. It's like the work does make life easier.
When you're looking at somebody like that, like somebody comes to you with that as a side, I tore my labrum in my right shoulder while deer hunting, pulling a bow back 2 years ago, and went through like a really fun year of like, let's see, like we do this all the time. When you have to like turn that mirror on and look at it, like your intensity of like, all right, let's study this. I tell patients this all the time, but I'm gonna ramp my intensity up. If you're dealing with somebody on that level, what would be the things that you would want to know? Like, carte blanche, hey, doc, I'm coming to you. Yeah. I have these issues, but I really want to use this pain as like a kind of a change to really help this heal better, but get healthier. What tests would we be starting to look at when you're trying to get a base level of health for somebody?
Yeah. So if you look at it, you're most likely, I don't know specifically, but people are in pain when they come to see you, lower back, shoulder, hip, whatever it might be, meniscus tears, etc. I used to see that all the time when I wasn't a PT, but I was National Academy of Sports Medicine, National Strength and Conditioning Association, like love doing that type of work. And so when you help people, they give you referrals, which is great. Now it's mainly like autoimmune issues, pain, or overall body pain, migraines. And so I say, listen, I know that you don't like the pain and I don't want you to suffer either. But that pain is our gauge of what is working and what is not. And we're going to heal this from the inside out. And so in an ideal world, we run something called the Big Five. So the Big Five is just an easy name to say, we're going to look at 5 at-home lab tests that are going to be saliva sample, urine sample, hair sample, stool sample. The stool sample separate if we look at parasites. We do that a lot for autoimmune, and blood spot. And so we are looking at their overall inflammation levels, their vitamin levels, their mineral levels, their gut health, their heavy metals, their hormones, in-depth hormones, and a lot more, and food sensitivities. So when we look at it, all dis-ease of the body, and that includes pain that's non-specific, meaning like not from an injury, comes down to, do you have too much of something? We call that a toxicity. Or do you have too little of something? We call that a deficiency. So the deficiencies, as we spoke about earlier, are easy. We can replace those, but we need to know which ones, because there are not hundreds, but there's a good 50 to 60 that we could be deficient in. That is actual, right? Nobody's really deficient in an herb, but herbs can help the body heal. But you're not deficient in ashwagandha. You might just have too much stress, and ashwagandha helps to decrease cortisol by about 36%. Okay, so that can be helpful, right? So we look at that. Now, that could be a toxicity, too much cortisol. We could have too much thyroid hormone, which would be Graves' disease. Too little, that's more Hashimoto's or low thyroid. But usually it's too much mercury or aluminum or lead or copper toxicity, or could be viral-based issues, or candida overgrowth, SIBO, parasites, H. pylori, food sensitivities. Okay, those are toxicities. We need to subtract those. We need to remove those. That is where the true, real healing takes place. And it does not happen overnight. But here's the good news. Like, it took me 10 years to get well, but only because I didn't have the blueprint. If I was in my same position again, I was a bad case, so 6 months to maybe 9 months, year for the worst cases. Most people 3 to 6 months. And that's enough time for the body to turn over all those red blood cells. That's about 90 days to 120 days. And it's enough time to really go through, multiple protocols to remove and fix the gut where most inflammation is coming from. We could talk about that maybe next, as well as the heavy metals. And so that's how we look at it, is first gather your data. It'd be like a chiropractor. I'm not saying that you can't make an adjustment without, getting an x-ray, but it's sometimes helpful to have data like an MRI or an x-ray to look at things. My job, I look at the deficiencies and toxicities to know what to do next.
Yeah. That would, let's kind of double click on that. Like when you look at the testing part of this, like in most of my patients, I think they want to get the testing done, but they're a little bit kind of jaded by it because they're like, I've done blood tests. Like we ask them all, I'm sure you hear this all the time. They're like, yeah, I have blood tests. I have the blood results, and we pull it and it's like, they did a CBC and like, you're alive is right. The answer. But they also are kind of like a little bit skeptical of what tests they're going to tell them. Is this just going to make me take a bunch of stuff? Like, how do you explain your philosophy around testing? And I'd love to know your thoughts on this kind of big push over the last year or two with these kind of home mailing test kits and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been running blood work as well as the integrative at-home lab tests for almost 20 years. It's what I ran in around 1998 that ultimately helped me find out what was wrong with me. So I'm, of course, a huge believer. These are all CLIA certified labs. They're all third-party tested. Third-party test labs. Most practitioners don't have their own lab test. I mean, we run labs, we do custom panels, all that, but these are all outside third-party. They're verified. They're legitimate labs. So now let's go to the blood work. It's not that blood work's bad. Blood work should be run. I run my blood work 2 to 3 times a year. But here's the thing. Blood work's never off unless you're in really bad shape. Meaning, like, if your CBC is off, you've got some type of anemia. Like, you've got low copper anemia, B12 anemia, or probably iron-based anemia. It takes a lot for your red blood cells to be under-oxygenated, right? And so, like, that's bad. If you have elevated TPO antibodies in Hashimoto's, well, like, that's been happening for years. You didn't get an autoimmune issue over the last 2 months. Like, that's not going to happen. Not typically. There can be issues around that, but like, that rain barrel has been getting ready to overflow for some time now. If your liver enzymes are off, you're in real bad shape, right? Now, all of these things are fixable, but also in your blood work, it doesn't tell you why any of those things are elevated or low. What does tell you are all the big 5 labs, right? So, do you have high omega-6s or proper omega-6 to omega-3 balance? Do you have multiple food sensitivities or not, right? Like, that is an IgG immunoglobulin reaction inside of your body. Is your cortisol high before bed? That's a bad thing. That'll lower thyroid hormone production the next morning, and it will elevate glucose because cortisol is a glucocorticoid. So it's like, I understand it because it's not conventional medicine based, that there's skepticism, but I want to be honest, conventional medicine will never help you get well. They will medicate the problem. But if you go off the medication, you still have the problem. So you're not really solving it. You're masking that particular outlet of the symptom. As an example, most people who go on a statin drug eventually go on high blood pressure medication, and oftentimes they end up with type 2 diabetes as well. Almost everybody with type 2 diabetes ends up then with blood pressure issues and kidney issues eventually, because those medications, they won't tell you this, start to shut down the kidneys 10, 20 years later. So our job is to get to the underlying root cause, and I'm actually have no problem with people using pharmaceuticals in the short term to make sure they stay alive, right? Like, if someone comes in and their blood pressure's 185 over 135, let's make sure that you live the next 6 months while we lower that blood pressure, because we will, but we need to get you there as well. So I take it from a truly integrative perspective and say, what is best for this individual in front of me? I know I can help them get well over the next 3 to 6 months. What do we need to do in the short term? What do we need to do in the long term? And sure, some of it might be supplementation, but in my first book, The Rain Barrel Effect, I just lay everything out. Like, here are the top 10 ways people get sick. Here are the ways to get well. It's the de-stress protocol: diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, and sleep protocols, scientifically backed supplements, emotional balance, success mindset. The success mindset makes sure that when you hit obstacles and challenges, which you will, that you don't give up. That it's just, you'll learn from it, you'll figure it out. There is always a way. And so ultimately, supplements are one part of it, but it's not the whole part. And most of the time, you're weaning off of those as you start to get well.
Yeah, people, like, we start talking about testing and stuff, and one of the things that it always brings to mind to me is, like, what action can you take on the testing?
Yes.
And, like, there is a lot of tests that it's just kind of like, there is no real action you can take from that. Like, it just tells you that there's an issue, and then you have to go digging for more and more information to find out what action you can take. So, like,
I completely agree with that. There are many tests out there that are vanity tests or whatever it might be, and there's no action at all that you can take on it. Yeah.
Well, and what you just laid out, it's like, for all of those things, people call them functional labs. They should be like actional labs or something like that.
I like
like everything that you get, you're like, oh, okay, hey, I have an action that I can do that will make this better as I go through the process of trying to, live healthy, get healthier, optimize my function, heal better, whatever it might be. So I love that there's been such a big push with inside tracker function. There's probably like 10 of them that I don't know about anymore. What's your feeling on how fast that has come about? Where like sending these to people's houses and letting them kind of get tested. What's your thoughts on that as a whole?
Well, I'm an advocate of open sourcing your lab testing. So that's what I've been trying to do with Equalife for the last decade. Ship all over the world, get people access to it. Shouldn't have to ask your doctor. Yeah. So we have a doctor in every state. We have a medical doctor in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, ship labs all over. Because I remember like way back in the day asking my doctor when I was learning about vitamin D3 in like the early 2000s. I'm like, can you run my vitamin D3? Why do you want to know your vitamin D3? Well, it's one of the most important hormones, literally not just a vitamin, that helps with my hormones, my blood sugar, my immune system. My white blood cells are below a 2. Don't you think we should maybe look at my vitamin D3? And like, you don't need to run that. And I had to ask for permission. And I'm like, it's my body. I'm willing to pay for it. I know I'm going to have to copay it. Like, let me run the lab. And so from then on, I'm like, wow, this is a racket. Yeah. And it's not. So I love that we're open sourcing that, but also making recommendations for nutritional supplements based on blood work, usually not the best idea because you need to know the underlying root cause as to what caused that. So for example, let's say someone has elevated high blood pressure. I know that's on your blood work, so let's use a different one. Let's say it's cholesterol. Okay. So cholesterol might be from elevations you're an ApoE genotype 3444, and so you don't process saturated fat as well. Okay, that's one possibility. The next possibility is that you might have elevated levels of cortisol. Cortisol creates higher levels of stress in the body, pulls more sugar into the bloodstream. That can cause plaque as well. Another issue could be with fibrin buildup, right? So you have additional fibrin buildup using just something like a proteolytic enzyme, nattokinase, which has been shown to be 3 times as effective, 36.6% reduction versus 11.5 versus a statin, can help break down that fibrin. So I could go on all the different reasons as to why you might have elevated levels of cholesterol, but all you see on your blood work is you have elevated levels of cholesterol. That's it. It doesn't tell you why. So what I like to do is find the underlying root cause why. Again, a good example is that inflammation test. It's inexpensive. It tells you what are your EPA levels and DHA levels of omega-3. If they're low, you have the option. Do I want to eat fish 4 times a week, low mercury, high omega-3 fish? Wild salmon, wild trout, sardines, mackerel, anchovies. Will you eat that 4 times a week for dinner? If the answer is yes, you don't need a supplement. If you do, then you just need 2 grams a day of a higher EPA than DHA. Like, it's that simple. Just choose one or the other. Then conventional medicine knows that this is true. That's why they prescribe their new omega-3 fish oil as a prescription now, right? So it's like these things, there are some foundational things that we all want to get on board with. And these action-oriented labs or these action-taking labs that you just talked about are the way to figure that out. I mean, that's how I figured out first I had Addison's disease, because who would ever test a 17-year-old for Addison's disease? That doesn't even make sense, right? Like that shouldn't be a possibility. But when I ran a test called the stress mood and metabolism test, it did a 4 time during the day cortisol test through saliva, and I wasn't producing cortisol. Took it back to my PCP. I'm like, hey, not producing cortisol. He's like, this is strange. I don't know about this lab, but this is strange. Ran the ACTH stim test. Lo and behold, wasn't producing cortisol. Hence the Addison. So anyway, I'm a believer. We'll put it that way. We've run over 300,000 labs, and we've done 300,000 one-on-one appointments. I would have written this off a long time ago if it didn't work. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I have gone back to kind of patients talking about it. I have so many patients who, until the last, I'd say like 5 or 10 years, were a little bit COVID really helped us out a lot, to be honest with you, where patients were like, okay, yeah, like I'll do whatever test I need to do at home. I think it kind of opened us up to taking more action on these things. But people just didn't have access to get the information. And it was like you had these gatekeepers who were kind of saying, no, you don't need to do that, when everything else physiologically and even research-based was kind of saying, hey, if we improve these markers. I had a fun conversation I'll let you in on with one of our physicians in the area, who his statement, we were talking about a mutual patient, and he said, yeah, but the research says vitamins don't work. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. I was like, what are you talking about?
It's so insane to say something like that.
I'm like,
which vitamin?
Yeah, and it was like that. I'm like, it was, that was the blanket statement. And I mean, this has been a couple years ago, but it was just, I was like, this is what you're kind of climbing. This is the hill you're climbing. And of course, it's going to leave a lot of people confused and a lot of people asking questions of like, should I take this? Should I not take this? And I feel like giving people more access to testing is a really helpful thing so that A, we know where to go. We know where we're at right now. So we have a path, but B, we actually know when we're arriving. Like, there was a going joke in the Olympics that the Americans had the most expensive urine in the world. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but
that's what besides saying there's no research on vitamins, it's like vitamins are just going to create expensive urine. Like that's the other, catch-all throwaway for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard that many times.
We're on this, so I'm gonna bring it up because it was another thing that I wanted to really like dig with you, because I tend to cycle certain things on and off depending on like goals, time of the year, even like when we're in like kind of like allergy season, I go back on quercetin with like nettle extract and stuff, but then I do come off of it whenever it's like allergy season's gone. But one of the things that you said recently-ish was like most foundational nutrients work best when taken consistently, not cycled on and off. Like I do that with glutathione. I don't stop taking glutathione. And then like vitamin C, vitamin D, I pretty much do that. What's your thoughts on like cycling on and off of different compounds for like what your goals are, and where does this kind of match up with that?
Yeah. So if you look at it, it's like, I always say, because I always want to get down to brass tacks. So if there's 3 nutritional supplements that every human would do well with, and again, we're talking about 99.9% of people, there's always 0.1%, right? That's contraindicated. And so when we look at that, it's going to be a good activated multivitamin, which includes basically a whole methylated B vitamin. Because whether you are MTHFR deficient, so basically it's called methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, just means that you don't absorb or utilize folate as well, or folic acid. So you need the methylated form, but all those B vitamins help with stress. So if you have no stress in your life and you're good, then maybe you don't need as much of that. But it's also it's a safety. Like all it is say it's 100% of all your vitamins and minerals essentially for the day. Amazing. Like zinc, copper, all the things that you need. Now, the second one would be 2 grams of omega-3s. Most people I know don't eat fish 4 times a week, and they're not eating high omega-3 fish. They don't like oily fish. And so they're eating like, tilapia, which like, you're not going to get a lot of benefits from that. Okay, so that's the second one. And the third one is vitamin D3. And most adults need about 4,000 to 5,000 IUs. But again, very simple. You just run your blood work, and if you're between a 50 and a 70, maybe an 80, you're golden. You'll know the right dose for you. And then if you take 2 grams a day of omega-3s, and then you run the omega-3 inflammation test, and you're a 3-to-1 ratio, you know that that's the right amount for you. But that's that from, again, running this on hundreds of thousands of people. That's that. Now, the research backs that up. They just did head-to-head studies on placebo control group versus the group with just omega-3s versus the group with just vitamin D3 and the group combined together. And there was I don't want to give you the exact quote right now. We're talking over 20%, 27% reduction in all-cause mortality and cancer. And it was actually more than that when you did both combined. Now, those are inexpensive products. You're talking about $1.50 a day for omega-3 and maybe 75 cents a day for the vitamin D3. Oh, with K2. I would add the K2 with it, which is great for blood clotting, et cetera, getting it to the bones where it's needed. So inexpensive. For maybe $5 a day, you get all of that. And that's literally a coffee or however you want to do it. But then getting back to what you're saying, now after that, it's bio-individualized. What do you need? Do you have high nervous system stress? Are you low in magnesium? You might need a little bit of magnesium at dinner to calm the central nervous system. If you're into sports and performance, using creatine, citrulline, malate, that can be amazing. Like that could be good. Seasonal allergies, using something like His Pro, which has the stinging nettles, the pearl of fruit, the quercetin, the vitamin C, that could be great during the month of April and May. So like there are ways to cycle these, but not the main nutrients that your body needs every day. That's how I look at it.
Gotcha.
And just one thing I wanted to say about like the doctors, like anyone who says that to you, you just say, thank you, I appreciate your advice. And then you just walk away slowly. Like that's it. And the reason is that vitamins and minerals are literally what our body functions on, besides the amino acids, except fatty acids, etc. Like a perfect example, 1 out of 5 women are going to have low thyroid in their lifetime. Thyroid is literally made out of iodine. How much iodine do you get in your diet? Are you eating seaweed? Like, where are you getting your iodine from, right? So a lot of people are deficient in the molecule, the nutrient that literally makes iodine. Now, you might have that, but you're not getting selenium in your diet. Selenium is what's going to help convert T4 to activated T3, the hormone, thyroid hormone you can actually use. Zinc is needed for that as well. So is vitamin B6. So if you're not sleeping at night, do you have literally enough vitamin B6 and selenium as well to convert folate to 5-methylfolate to serotonin and then to melatonin? If you have low ambition, you have low drive, you have low mood, are you low iron, low copper, or low B6? Because without those, you're going to have not enough neurotransmitters. So I don't practice conventional medicine or surgery for a reason, because I didn't study that. So I don't want a person to go to me for that. They can go to their emergency room or whoever there. And I practice. So I just recommend everybody should have a medical doctor that does medical doctor things to help save your life in acute circumstances. They should have a great biomechanic of the body like yourself, a naturopathic doctor or integrative health practitioner. There's nothing wrong with going to the expert in that space. That's what I do my entire life, literally.
How often? So, I mean, my last micronutrient test is funny you brought that up. I was low in B2 and selenium, like deficient in selenium. First time ever. I mean, so how often do you run those labs? And I'll circle back to that. How often do you recommend running that? Yearly?
Yeah, we typically do an annual Big 5 with our clients, or the less expensive one is the starter kit, which is all your vitamins, all your minerals, looks at heavy metals, looks at gut function, mitochondrial function, et cetera. That's a urine-based test and a couple hair tissue mineral analysis, which, again, people are skeptical of that. I totally get it. Skeptical of everything, right? Except for blood work. And I understand it because I was the same exact way. But your hair is basically protein. It's a tissue, and it shows the excretion. So it doesn't match up with blood work. It's a different marker to look at. They use it for FBI. They use it for NASA. They use it for heavy metal testing for women in pregnancy. So, I mean, it's a very functional and useful test. But those I recommend on an annual basis. And then if anything's off, we won't run all 5 again. We'll just run the one that was off if it's not easily that we know that we can automatically correct it. So for example, let's say you're like a 6.7 to 1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. That's where the average person is who's eating healthy, but they're not supplementing or eating enough fish. So we don't need to rerun that lab. We can just say, just keep your healthy diet that you're doing now. Let's add 2 grams of a higher EPA to DHA fish oil. You're going to be good. Like, we know that you're going to be. You can just test it again in a year from now and kind of prove that point. So we try to save our clients money that way as well. And then blood work annually as well. And then if something's off, you'll rerun in about 12 weeks to make sure you've corrected it.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'm a nerd, so I'm like, when both of those hit, I'm like, I have no symptoms. My energy's great, sleeping good, moving good, everything's great. But I'm like, but this goes to testing, right? Like, I want to know that before something becomes a problem. And so, add in a couple of, selenium rich foods, kind of B2 was riboflavin was one of the, it was quite low. Like, all right, well, we're going to attack this from both angles. Let's start kind of adding it in. And many of my patients were like, well, what were you feeling to do that? I was like, I wasn't feeling anything. But think if we could bring you in and everyone in the world got a full movement analysis, twice a year. How's your neck moving? How's your back? How's your shoulder? How's your hips? And then you got like a little, hey, here's what you should do for the next 6 months to fix these things. The amount of pain problems we would prevent would be crazy. I'm like, that's what this is if we could see, do you have the basic building blocks inside your body to keep you feeling good? If the answer is no, let's do it before you don't feel good, before they start to kind of spiral on you.
Well, and you're the expert in the space, but like when I was working with clients from a strength and conditioning perspective, they weren't in pain all the time, but that's because they were compensating. Like, I'd watch someone do a bridge and I'm like, you somehow took your glutes and hamstrings out of this completely, and you're somehow bridging with your calves and quads. I've never seen this before. This is impressive. But like, that's not what a bridge is supposed to be. You're supposed to be engaging the posterior chain, engaging your glutes, the erector spinae, the hamstrings, and you're not necessarily in pain, but there will be dysfunction down the road and it will be gradual. It's like, if you don't strength train twice a week, the amount of bone and muscle loss is so slow. It's like a pound to 2 pounds maximum per year, per decade. But after 20, 30 years, you've now lost 15 to 30 pounds of muscle mass. That's devastating to your structural integrity, your pain, your metabolism, your longevity overall, your hormones. And so nothing happens in a month or two. It happens over months and years. And so, yeah, it's in an idea, but also people don't, I didn't know it either, like truthfully. So we'll put it this way. I got better at 27 years old. No more diagnosed conditions, no more autoimmune, no more Addison's, no more type 2 diabetes, et cetera. Okay. But I didn't know what real health was until my early 30s. I'm 48 now. I feel better than I ever have, but it's just because it's compounding now. It's like an annuity. I get more every year, even though I'm getting older, because I continue to do the things that I need to do to feel that way. So a lot of people have never known what like abundant energy in both body and brain feel like, or to be really pain-free. Yeah. And so all of these things are important, but I'm now getting older and I realize that my mobility and flexibility are less. I am more stiff. And I realize that nothing's going to happen most likely over the next couple of years, but I'm going to get stiffer and stiffer. I need to now pay attention to literally doing that type of work, which truthfully, I don't like to do, right? So what am I going to do? I'm probably going to go see somebody to make me do it. Like it's an accountability partner. Mm-hmm. And like, there's nothing wrong with that if you can do it. That's what I'm going to do.
Let's talk about sugar, Doc. We get probably more pushback on, I mean, this is going to kind of circle back to like the subtractive part on changing sugar intake. How important is that when you see these things? What's your like steps when dealing with sugar? I hear a bunch of different thoughts around, is sugar the devil? Is it okay? Is it in moderation? I know you've talked about it pretty extensively, but let's give the listeners a little candy.
Yeah. So let's first separate out whole fruit, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, cherries, strawberries, all your fruit. That's not sugar. Yes, it has sugar, but it's packed with all of the polyphenols, which are those antioxidants, the anthocyanins that give them the bright color. And it has a lot of fiber with it. Over and over in the research, it has been shown if you add blueberries, if you add these berries to a meal, it lowers blood sugar, right? And so that's not the issue. No humans overeating fruit probably, right? I mean, it's possible, but probably not. So we are looking at processed sugar. And even if you were to make like your own homemade pies like back in the day with real fruit, we're not even really talking about that with some sugar added. We are talking about processed carbohydrates that not only have sugar, they have the seed oils, the hydrogenated oils that we're really talking about. That's the deadly combination because those oils destroy our cell membranes. It's not sugar. I know this is going to be controversial. It's not really sugar that's causing diabetes. It can. Like if you're drinking big gulps from 7-Eleven, yes, that's diabetes waiting to happen. There's no doubt about it. But it is the gumming up of our cell membranes that turns off those glucose receptors or insulin receptors so that when we produce insulin from the beta cells of the pancreas that tells the sugar that's in our bloodstream to go into the liver or into the muscles or whatever it might be, those are turned off. So now the sugar hangs around in our blood longer, causing what we call insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, but it's the cell membrane. So processed sugar is bad, no doubt about that. Candy's bad, all of those things. But then it's also talking about like for whom? The average person is sedentary, so they're never burning any of that. If you look at professional athletes, they eat terribly. Like they're inflamed, but their hemoglobin A1C is like a 4.4, 4.8. Like I work with a lot of athletes. So they're eating 400 grams of carbs a day. Like it's not that, it's the environment as to where the sugar is going into. And of course, I don't recommend artificial flavors and colors and all those things. But it's not just sugar, it's also the oils that wreck the cell membranes that don't allow the sugar to get into the body. Because ultimately, your body would just keep adding more and more body fat. And that's ultimately what does happen. And that causes a lot of inflammation and excess estrogen. And that causes excess cortisol. And then that starts the cycle again because sugar continues to climb. So the way that we are eliminated is literally through an elimination diet. We do a functional medicine detox for 21 days that then starts to change those cell membranes, starts to work on the taste buds, starts to get more of the fiber into the diet, the meal timing, the intermittent fasting to change the cell membranes. But you have to be you want to be easy on yourself because it takes 3 to 4 months to change those cell membranes, but it can happen. And that's the good news.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on kind of how fast to change those things? So like if you're doing a 21-day detox, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of like a full sweep. Like we're kind of dramatically changing what you were doing to what you're doing today. Is that right?
Dramatic change. You will see the drop in blood sugar because we're adding walking to that as well. So there's probably a recommendation that you're making too, but like 20 minutes to 30 minutes after a meal, It actually had to be pretty quick. It has to be within 15 minutes, basically, of eating. It will lower postprandial glucose levels by quite a significant amount. But so will adding psyllium husk with the meal, and so will adding apple cider vinegar, believe it or not. Like, all of these things move the needle on your peak blood sugar spike as well as your overall glucose by about 10 to 15%. And like, that's pretty good. Like, that'll lower it 20 points if you're using a continuous glucose monitor. But at the same time, it's like, all the people who are using a continuous glucose monitor right now, and I'm one of those people, don't need to be using it. Like, you don't need to. If you run your blood work and your hemoglobin A1C is between 4.8 and 5.2, you're good with carbohydrates. You're good with, being able to enjoy these things. Like, your body's using them as fuel. So I don't want to get overly, indulgent in this, but the people who do need it, like, it works. And we need to work on that. Blood sugar is one of the most important things that you can regulate for your overall cardiovascular, blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer's, which are the 5 top reasons for all-cause mortality. So regulating blood sugar is absolutely one of the most important things to do. I just want to get away from the notion that your blood sugar needs to be below 95 the entire day. It does not.
Right.
It's allowed to spike, not up to 200, but it's allowed to spike post-meal for 3 meals a day. That's totally normal. And your hemoglobin A1C will show that. That's your 90-day gauge of where your blood sugar has been. So if you look at it and you're basically it's not sticky, right? The hemoglobin, the glycated protein is not sticky. You're going to have a lower hemoglobin A1C. And that means that you're good, like, you're healthy. So we like that.
Let's keep going on this, because we got a bunch of questions that basically fell in if you were going to take somebody today over the next 30 days to get their body into a healing state, what would that look like? We got, like, I don't know, let's say 10 questions that all kind of ask that. So
am I allowed to run labs or no labs?
Say that again.
Am I allowed to run lab testing with these individuals or no?
Yes.
Okay. So before you do a 21-day functional medicine detox, and I'll walk people through it, you'll run in an ideal world, you run your big 5. And that's just quick omega-3 inflammation test, IgG food sensitivity test, minerals and metals test for minerals and heavy metals, candida metabolic and vitamins test. That's basically gut health, mitochondria, and vitamins. And then it is the stress mood and metabolism test. That's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, cortisol throughout the day, which you can't get on blood work. All of your thyroid numbers, T4, T3, TPO antibodies, TSH, vitamin D3, and your hemoglobin A1C. That's a massive test. Unbelievable. And then the last one is, am I forgetting one?
Let's see. Stress mood, candida, IgG. Did you say minerals?
Nope. Got them all 5.
Metals?
Yeah.
I think you got them.
So that should be all 5. And so that gives us an overall look at the underlying root cause factors for all disease. So no matter what you're diagnosed, people always ask, have you worked with someone with, and they'll give me the most obscure disease. And I'm like, usually like, well, we've been doing this now for 20 years. We've seen over 300,000 people. The answer is usually yes. But if not, it does not matter the name of the disease. So like, there's Addison's, there's type 2, there's all the things I had. But none of that really matters because it's a name of a disease. Like Dr. Addison's discovered, I'm putting that in air quotes, Addison's disease. Dr. Hashimoto's discovered Hashimoto's, right? Hashimoto discovered Hashimoto. So they're just names of a set of symptoms. So my job is not to understand the name, but it does help me. Like I do understand, like, okay, Hashimoto's has these core things. We're going to look for those. But once I know your deficiencies and your toxicities, now I can create what I call like a biological blueprint, right? That's what Personomics, my new book's all about. It's like, there's foundational things we were talking about that all humans need. But that's what you need, right? Like you need a Brazil nut a day because you're low in selenium, right? Like it's okay. So that's for you. Not for everybody, but that is for you. And so that's what I would do first. Then once the labs are submitted, they take about 3 weeks to get back. So now I'm immediately going into a 21-day functional medicine detox. And I'm going to dramatically improve blood sugar, hormones, inflammation, brain fog, and the overall interstitial milieu. That basically means what all the cells are swimming in and they're being fed all day long. But at the same time, I'm teaching people, kind of sneakily, intermittent fasting. They stop eating at 6. They're not starting until 8. That's 14 hours, right? Intermittent fast. Yeah. Okay. Then they're eating every 3.5 hours or so. So we're getting kind of our meal timing. Blood sugar comes up, it comes back down. It comes up, it comes back down. So we're getting that, but easy to digest meals too. So now their energy is going towards repairing the immune system rather than all these hard to break down meals, right? And because 2 of them are shakes, right? And 2 are whole food meals. And I'm keeping them plant-based, borrowing from Dr. Valto Longo's work, as well as Ayurvedic medicine. So autophagy and AMPK are really high all the way to dinner, which is our only paleo animal-based protein for the day. So there's so many things built into this to improve the overall body. Now, once you finish with that, Now all your personal results are in, and we build your personalized plan. And then it's a roadmap from most egregious to least egregious. So if you have parasites, that comes first. That's really egregious. It's going to change your immune system, all these things. Then we're working on gut health. Then we'll work on heavy metals or mold, whatever's the most egregious. And then there's the individual things like your nutrient deficiencies and toxicities.
Would you test, I mean, you mentioned like mold and stuff like that. Would that come out in the big five that you would see if somebody has that?
It's a good question. So it comes out to a degree in the first 9 markers on the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. So the big 5 labs has over 500 biomarkers. Like it's a massive, people talk like, oh, this blood work runs 120, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like blood work is great. We look at blood work. We like looking at blood work. But as I said, if anything's off, I want to refer back to the big 5, which we don't own. Like it's Equalife's labs because we sign off on them. But these are 5 different labs, that we're pulling from. So it's like the best in class is always what we use for our clients. And so mold will show up to a degree because mold is, I call a close cousin to yeast and fungus, which is Candida. And so, but if let's say someone comes in during the consult, they say, I have postnasal drip, I've got itchy eyes. It's worse when I'm in my home instead of when I'm outside of it. I'm like, oh, there very well could be mold here. Or worse when I'm in my office than when I leave. And that's a very good giveaway. And so we'll run something called a mold mycotoxins test. And so it's a urine test, and you're literally urinating out specific mycotoxin metabolites that shows us one of essentially 18 or so different metabolites of mold, which are mycotoxins. And if those are elevated, we know that it's either from environmental, from a water leak, that unbeknownst to you, it could be behind your drywall or in your AC unit, your vents, or it's coming from food. And so we'll help them with that as well.
What's the program for that? How do you detoxify? If it's, I mean, obviously you got to do, kind of the environmental correction, but what are you doing inside the body?
So everything comes back to the de-stress protocol. So because people think right away we're going to supplements. Yes, because supplements do work. In this particular case, there is anti-mold herbs. So some of those would be like yarrow or rosmarinic acid. Like those are clinically proven to help decrease mycotoxins, mold in the body. We're using a universal binder. We don't do binders all the time, but we will in this case because a low histamine, so bentonite clay, humic acid, fulvic acid, a coconut activated charcoal, those will help to lower the mycotoxin load as we're pulling them through the liver and into the intestines. And then the last one's a biofilm disruptor, which helps with the immune system and helps to break down the gut-based issues as well. So mold affects your digestive system. It can affect your brain, but it affects your kidneys as well. So we're making sure we take good care of them. And then we're getting your immune system back online. So we're making sure you have proper levels of zinc because mold and mycotoxin can deplete zinc. Vitamin C, you mentioned glutathione. If we need it, we'll add it. If we don't, then we won't. It shows glutathione levels and NAC on your Candida metabolic and vitamins test. So again, these tests just tell us so much information about, I don't want to do anything that we don't need to do, truthfully. So that helps me process of elimination, but we're also going on a low mold diet. So I don't want people to think it's all supplements. So we're doing our movement, we're doing our exercise, we're on a low mold diet, because there are certain high mold foods that we're going to eliminate. High histamine foods, because if you have high levels of mycotoxins, you probably have high levels of histamine. So we're going low histamine. And the last part is we're using sauna, because sauna also helps to eradicate mold and mycotoxins from the body, not just heavy metals. So it's a well-rounded protocol. We ask for about supplements are, easy to take. Food is a 1-for-1 exchange. And then we ask for about 30 minutes of some type of specific activity per day. Could be sauna, could be doing cardio, could be something to kind of eradicate, get circulation moving, get the lymphatic system moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering if you're going to bring up sauna. I've become increasingly interested in deeper testing on when we're going through sauna and stuff. And we've used it a ton on patients. And it's I really haven't found many people who, after doing a series of sauna, that aren't just everything seems to be functioning better.
Absolutely. If you look at biohacking, all the healthy biohacking, sauna is and it's in a class all on its own. If you said, I can only give you PMF, red light, cold plunge, cryo, this, or sauna almost every time. The research on sauna is incredible. It acts as zone 2 cardio. It helps with osteoarthritis, even rheumatoid arthritis. It's incredible. So, and the truth is you can go low and slow. Don't set the temperature too high in the beginning. Don't go in too long. There's a little something for everybody. When I had my clinic in Boston, now we're virtual, so we work all over the world, but that sauna was cranking 16 hours a day. it was unbelievable.
Ours stays busy, but at this time of year, it's a little bit tougher for us to get patients here in South Louisiana, which is also why I bring up mold. It's like we're in this like humid, hot environment a lot of times, and I feel like there's way more people around here who are dealing with mold issues than they realize, and it's not getting tested enough. It's not getting talked about enough in their clinics when they have these weird, just kind of inflammatory conditions that just don't seem to get better. I've in recent years started to kind of get my spidey senses start to kind of turn on whenever people have like, I've tried this, and it's like, but it keeps coming back. I'm like, there's something in your environment, and where we live, it just seems like probably a bigger player than might be getting credit for.
51% of all homes on essentially the East Coast, and I know that's not exactly Louisiana, but like you can think southeast as well, anything that's a wet climate. I mean, that's basically how you're looking at it. 51% of homes have mold. Some people react to it more than others. There's no doubt about that, but it still does affect the immune system, and eventually it affects kidney function and can cause chronic kidney disease from the inflammation. So it's absolutely worth looking into in terms of pain, brain fog, migraines, post-nasal drip, itchy eyes. And again, the simple test is if you feel better leaving an environment and worse in an environment, check that environment. And one thing I didn't talk about our mold protocol, the number one thing we do in our mold protocol is remove the offender. That's always it, right? So it's like you have to remediate. It's just, if not, you're going to be on that protocol for the rest of your life. And sure, it'll help remediate that in your body, but you need to get to the source.
One of the questions I really wanted to make sure we get to is based on one of your recent podcasts that I really enjoyed. And in that, you said the more we chase after things, the more they run away. How do you think about that with health, though?
Yeah, it's a hard one. So the only people I haven't seen been able to heal are those that identify with their disease. They're a victim of it. And that's hard because I was there myself. And essentially, I got to the point, which is not a good point to get to. I just said, I don't care if I ever get well. I'm not going to let this disease run my entire life. And then I still did the work, but I didn't have the same attachment. And then I read a book. I was reading 3+ books a week on my 90-minute commute both ways to Boston from Providence, Rhode Island. I read a book by Dr. Pete and decided to contact her. I'd met with almost 100 practitioners probably since then. So it wasn't weird for me to reach out. They wouldn't all respond, but she ended up being in Maine, took a 2.5-hour bus ride to go see her. And as they say, the rest is history. So like, it's not that I didn't still continue to do the work, but I was no longer attached to the outcome. We all want to get to our goal in a specified amount of time. But if we look at it as it is inevitable we reach our goal with a long enough time horizon, then you can take a deep breath. And that goes for career, relationships, our health, weight loss, etc. Yeah, you want to lose 50 pounds and you wish you weren't 50 pounds overweight, but you're 50 pounds overweight. It's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. What's the longest it would take you to lose 50 pounds? I would look at it as, I don't know, 1 pound a week, right? So you get there in a year. Like you can do that, right? So if you're like, all right, you're 38 years old, you're 45 years old, you get the rest of your life. So it takes you a year. You haven't been able to do it for the last 5 years. So just give yourself the low, slow plan. So that's always, and then surprise yourself because it can be done in half the time. So that's how I like to look at it with clients too. But trauma is a real thing. And so you do need to seek help for the things that cause the tension internally, for pain, for gut issues, for high cortisol, whatever it is. And so I don't want to negate that many people should seek, good counseling, good therapy, but also in conjunction with the natural health plan, because it's hard to even want to do exercise when you're depressed.
Yeah,
and you can be depressed because
bundled up together, right?
Exactly. But if you started to move your body and it's hard, you would be less depressed. Like the research shows that. Okay.
Yeah.
If you started to take methylated B vitamins, vitamin D3, a multi, and then omega-3, or just like the first 3 that I just spoke about, you actually will be less depressed. And not by 100%, but you'll be less. So then it will just make everything else easier, because depression's not one thing. If it was, we would have already solved it. Yeah. Taking an SSRI is not going to help you overcome your depression in the long run. So again, it can be an immediate thing that you may need for life-saving, suicidal thoughts. Okay. But we know what the research shows 18 to 24 months later, and that's not ideal. So over that time, let's work on why you might be more depressed. And again, this goes for any condition. I'm just using that for an example.
Yeah.
Even autoimmune. Autoimmune, you're told, is incurable. Every single autoimmune disease that you can think about, someone has cured it. And their genetics as a human are not wildly different than yours.
Yeah, that I forget the name of that podcast, but that was really powerful. We used to have a float tank.
Yes.
And one of the exercises we would give was a guided meditation that basically took someone at some point in the future and made them go through their day without pain, with no restrictions, and see it. You wake up, you get up, see yourself going through that. This is going to happen. Take the stress off of it needing to happen in 6 weeks or any of that stuff. And that was really powerful, I think, for people to like have a visual that like, here's where I want to go. And as you broke down, mine was always like the brain has such a powerful connection with us and it wants to get us where we tell it. And so if you do that in a very stress-free way, your brain starts helping you in all these kind of crazy ways. As you spoke about on there, there's probably more happening in that, whether that be spiritual, universal, all that stuff kind of happening together. I thought that was a really, really neat thing. But when it comes to health, I think we want it so much and we're trying to like hold on to it that sometimes that becomes the thing that we always think about. And I'm with you when I see that in a patient, it always like gives me pause, because those are the hardest cases when they identify and their pain is part of who they are. It's the hardest one for us to heal.
And you're always looking for something wrong, right? Am I better today? Am I better today? Am I better today? Well, like as humans, we've never reached perfection. Like you don't have, you can have great days. Like most people, like that's what we want. We have great days, but like it's not perfect. Like that, we're not shooting for the perfection of whatever that Plato form is, right? We're shooting for a great life and overall happy, content, pain-free, and not sick. And so that's it. And then that does come working on the subconscious level. And the brain is attached to the nervous system. The nervous system we can call our subconscious, and they work both ways. And so it is really important that we start to look at those aspects, because when you are hyper vigilant and hyper aware and all of these things, you're always focused on something being wrong. And then it is a licking lollipop. Like it just literally is it's always the way that it's going to be. So you do have to find some way to release and to relax. And that's part of the healing process as well. That is part of that subtractive process that we, started talking about, is like letting that go. And as we talk about the spiritual part, and some of that is having faith, is belief. And sometimes that has to be belief beyond yourself. And I'm a big believer in that, is like, you haven't been able to do it, but maybe your practitioner has. So you borrow their confidence and their belief, and you have faith in God or a higher power, whatever it is and you have faith that will happen, that they put these individuals and these plans in front of you for a reason. And now it's your job to simply follow the plan. And that is what I believe we are here to do as service providers, is to help people go beyond their pain, whatever that is. And I've had lots of great practitioners and lots of great mentors. They've done it for me. And that's usually, most of us are in these positions because we've had to overcome a problem ourselves, or maybe a family member. And that's why we got into this. So we know what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. That hits very close to home. We got one more question for you. This has been awesome, Dr. Cabral. I really appreciate it. What's still keeping you up? What are you trying to figure out right now? What's the thing that you're asking yourself questions about? What are you trying to study or learn more about right now?
So when I say this, it's like I am someone that gives a lot of gratitude, and I have a lot of perspective, and I'm very grateful for what I'm able to do, like just for literally me being able to speak with you right now. I love to teach. There's 5 main causes of mortality: heart disease, blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's. There's one more. I'll talk about that in a moment. These 4 are solvable. You can see them decades in advance. People are worried about Alzheimer's. You can do a full body MRI and you can see the gray white matter of your brain and if it's shrinking or not. You literally can see that. And Alzheimer's happens over decades. So if you start to see some brain shrinkage, you can immediately go on protocols that have been proven to halt and stop Alzheimer's. That is now proven. Heart disease, we can reverse heart disease, like preventative testing. You have high blood pressure, we can reverse high blood pressure. You have type 2 diabetes, all type 2 diabetes can be reversed. Okay, So we know how to do that. And all the other things, easily fixable. There's one more that is deadly, and that's cancer. Cancer does not yet have a cure. That is what I'm working on. Doesn't mean I'm going to come up with the cure, but for sure, I'm going to try to help more people stay alive. That's my goal. So I'm going to take an integrative approach. And yeah, I've read all the books, but now we need to go beyond all the books in the research. So what are some off-label things that we can use that have great research behind them? How do we take an integrative approach through the de-stress protocol to be able to help people from all facets? So that is the next facet. And I'm developing just basically an in-depth course on that that'll be completely free, that we just give to people to say, this is the one thing we haven't figured out. I'm being honest about it. We can save a lot of people. We've saved a lot of people, but not everybody. And I want to get it to the place where we can save everybody.
Man, I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head. You are definitely born to be an educator and help people. And I appreciate everything you do, man. I've been keeping up with you for a long time now, and you can see your passion for helping people and everything that y'all do kind of come through in the way you communicate, the way you talk with people. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do these things. I know these are time consuming and mentally consuming at times, but getting this type of information out to people so they can take action and make better decisions on their health, I really appreciate it. So where can people catch up with you? Where can they find more about everything that y'all are doing? Where can they find more about health testing and get in touch with y'all's team to kind of figure out more about where they're at?
So my main website is stephencabral.com, Stephen with the PH. My 2 books, The Rain Barrel Effect and Personomics, are there. Lab testing is there. My podcast, The Cabral Concept's there. People can find me on Instagram. That's mainly where I'm posting, or YouTube. So yeah, just happy to help. And people have questions, they can write in at Ask Cabral or wherever. We're happy to help. I always love people to just start with the podcast, start with the book, start to see kind of what we talk about from a foundational based level, and then everything can be personalized for the individual, as we spoke about here today.
Yeah, definitely check out Personomics. I feel like as we talk about action, it breaks it down. You did a wonderful job of making that like very actionable and understandable of here's where you're at, here's what to do. Here's a case study about it. Here's where you're at, here's what to do. Here's kind of a little real world situation with it. I am on like the very last edit phase. And so when I read one that is like, I'm like, I know y'all went through that a lot. Thank you for everything that you have done. I have a different level of respect for that at this point in time.
The editing is the hard part. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So y'all definitely check out Personomics. I actually haven't, I've read that. I haven't gotten to Rain Barrel, but now I'm like, okay, well now I want to go back to Rain Barrel Effect. So we'll do some digging on it, but thanks a lot. We'll put all the links in the show notes, everybody. Make sure y'all go check it out and reach out to his team. They're doing some really great things. Doc, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you.